So I've been on a journey listening through Taylor Swift's newest discography because I haven't listened to anything that she's put out in the last 10 years for various reasons. But the album Folklore has just completely changed my opinion of Taylor Swift and her music, and I'll share why at the end of this video. But I just sat down and I just listened to Folklore. I heard that this album was unique, and it was, and I'll share my thoughts on the album as a whole. But I also just wanted to talk about the songs themselves and some of the things that stood out to me, starting with the opening track, The One. So first off, it's a great introduction to the album. It was super punchy, the mix was really tight. I love the movement of the song, the fun production that kind of evolves and moves. It's pretty consistent within itself. There were like some really cool pop elements, but completely avoided being cliche or whatever. I didn't think it was the strongest story, especially compared to some of the other songs on this album, and we'll talk about that in a second. Holy cow. But I did love the lyric, in my defense, I have none. That made me laugh for some reason. Then The Last American Dynasty. And for some reason, production-wise, it reminded me of Owl City. I don't know why. I can't really put my finger on it, but it's an interesting story about a lady who was an obnoxious nuisance in her neighborhood and then died of a heart attack, which I think was just hilarious, and maybe that shouldn't make me laugh, but it did. It was just really creative storytelling and something I've never heard a song do. I thought it was really neat. The next song, Exile, featuring Bon Iver, and I love Bon Iver's voice. It's so low. And I've never heard of him before, so I'll definitely be checking him out, but definitely a welcome. I think it's the only feature on this album, which was cool. There's Bon Iver's part, he starts off the song, and then Taylor comes in, and I love the dynamic of the two on this song. It's like, there's the lyric, like you'd get your knuckles bloody for me. And that just says so much about the character of the person she's singing about, and it paints a picture of the relationship that they had. I thought the mix was really interesting. The vocals were stacked in a really unique way, especially Iver's vocals. It was like this stereo thing, and it just made me feel, it didn't feel like I was listening to a person, but like a ghost of a person, which was, I don't know if that's what they were going for, but it was pretty unique. It was a sad song, and it was underlining the issues and misunderstandings in a relationship, almost as if the two involved were like talking to each other, but none of them were actually hearing each other, and it was really sad. The next was My Tears Ricochet, and I love how the song moves, and I think the story was just relatable to people. Mirrorball. I think it was the weakest production-wise of the whole album. I thought the story was really cool. It was using a circus as an analogy to describe how this girl in the story is trying to keep a person she loves from leaving by changing herself and entertaining and being like that. Again, I thought it was one of the weaker songs production-wise of the album. Not my favorite song, but the lyrics were really cool and the story was really cool. 7. So the intro of 7, I couldn't actually tell who was singing. I was like, is this a different album? Then once the verse comes in, then I could tell it was more back to that traditional Taylor Swift sound, but the intro was really different and it kind of threw me off a little bit. And I just want to talk about Taylor Swift's melody writing. I think she has a really unique melody writing technique, and I actually don't know what makes it different, but it is, and it's super unique, and it's very specific to her in her writing. The song 7, it's very indie sound. It's not trying to be something it's not. It's not pop at all. It's very just kind of down to earth. Next up, This Is Me Trying, and I think is also one of the weaker songs. I didn't really enjoy the production. The melody, it felt repetitive. It wasn't something, it didn't really catch my ear. It did pick up towards the end, and I thought of the word grit as it picked up. Grit was the word I had for it. I don't know. Illicit Affairs. The song about an affair, and definitely the most anxiety-inducing songs I've ever heard. Definitely my least favorite song on the album. Not because it's a bad song, but I just hated the subject matter. But I guess props to her for writing that. Invisible Strings. I love the intro guitar. I don't know what that is. I really want to learn how to do that. Maybe I'll make a video on how to replicate that sound of a guitar. Super stereo, but really close in. I don't know, I've never heard anything like that. It was beautiful. Definitely one of my favorite songs on the album, especially coming after Illicit Affairs. I thought the lyric, time, mystical time, cutting me open, then healing me fine, one of my favorites on the album because it's just true. Time does heal, but it also causes pain. It's just fascinating. Really cool lyric. And also, I'm just a sucker for that guitar. This is definitely my favorite song on the album. Mad Woman, another beautiful guitar picking song. The intro, especially with that kind of muted piano, is beautiful. But a really sad song, though. Epiphany, a really heartfelt song about soldiers and nurses, specifically, that were mentioned in the song, and the difficulties that they go through and the traumatic experiences they endure, actually moved me quite a bit. I thought it was a really sweet song, and I wasn't actually ready for that kind of subject matter to come in, but it happened, and it was really cool, and it was very different from, I haven't really heard a song tackle that subject matter in that way before, and I thought it was really unique. The song Peace, I think the lyric that says, all these people think love's for show, but I would die for you in secret, that is, I think, one of the most important lyrics of the album because it encapsulates what love is. And I think that's pretty hard to do. I'm a Christian. I believe that Jesus Christ died for my sins so that I could live free of guilt, free of shame, and go on to live with him in eternity. I believe that if I was the only one on this planet, that Jesus would have died for me, and so that spoke to me a lot. The last song, Hoax, and I think this was the saddest song on the album. It was almost like a hopeless resignation from life and a relationship, and that was a hard one to listen to. So folklore. Folklore, when you look it up in the dictionary, it is traditional customs, tales and sayings, dancings or art forms preserved among a people. I like this album because of what it's not. It's not a pop record. It's not even about Taylor Swift and her own life experiences, though I'm sure there's elements of inspiration from her own life sprinkled in. But it's an album about people, and no one's specific, but each song represents a story that takes place within a person's life, and most songs are about like a relationship of some sort, often written in a fairly tragic way, but each song is a simple story told in a complex way using analogies and lyrics that paint a picture, and each song is a painting, and I feel like it's a painting that you can touch and you can experience in a really unique way that I've really heard in very few artists that Taylor Swift has totally mastered in this album specifically. And so I like what this album is because of what it's not. It's not a pop record. It's not about Taylor. I like it because it's the most humble record I've ever heard from a major artist. It's putting the stories of unknown people, real or imaginary, in the spotlight for other people to relate to think about. It's giving the stories of just ordinary people a place in the world. And there's nothing fancy, no cars, money, fame, none of that. It's not a vain album. It's just simplicity in the complexity of life. That's how I would describe it. That's what really changed my mind about Taylor. She's willing to put aside her own ego and tell the story of someone else, which is not something a lot of artists do. So many artists are just so obsessed with themselves, so focused inwardly that that's all they write about. You'll notice I didn't mention Cardigan, August, and Betty because you'll have to go join me over in this video where I react to those 3 songs with my sister and we break down the story, what it means, and who we think the villain is in that story. So I'll meet you guys over there. See ya.